I'm Greg Gutfeld with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Geraldo Rivera, Brian Kilmeade. Angie cliff dives off a teacup, Dana Perino, the 5. Okay, let's recap Mike Pompeo's confirmation hearing. First, if you want to be part of the Republican administration, please denounce the Republican administration.
It's fair for our members to ask whether your relationship is rooted in a candid, healthy, give-and-take dynamic, or whether it's based on deferential willingness to go along to get along.
Up next, shameless bigotry smears.
Do you have any views that the Muslim faith or people who believe in worshiping, quote-unquote, other gods, is that just something negative in our country?
And let's not forget the T word.
Can you just clarify for me how you would, as Secretary of State, be clear as to America's commitment against torture?
Oh, so predictable, so fake, so irrelevant. But Mike did fine until this.
With respect to building a team out of the State Department, this is something I've done multiple times in my life. I did it as a tank platoon leader. I did it as a cavalry troop. I did it for 2 small businesses in Kansas. And then I worked hard at it at CAA. I'll leave to others to judge the success.
Oh dear, platoon leader, the language of war. Does Chuck Schumer have trauma counselors standing by? I hope Cory Booker brought his comfort bunny. So how do you know Pompeo deserves the gig? Let's ask her.
This man is no diplomat. This man is no diplomat. War on...
Please remove.
She totally nails it. Pompeo isn't a diplomat. That should be on his business card. When you reduce people to gibbering fools, you know you got a winner. See this tweet from Al Gore. Senators should reject Mike Pompeo. He denies the climate crisis and has been doing the bidding for fossil fuel interests his whole career. Well, Gore does know fossils. He's about as up-to-date on world events as Fred Flintstone. Again, if Al's a no, Pompeo's a yes. Here's another tweet. Over 180 national orgs representing millions of Americans, diverse communities, covering issues from national security and women's health to climate change and human rights have now publicly opposed Pompeo. Hashtag Stop Pompeo. Now, that's what I call an endorsement. For unlike those groups, Pompeo's no pacifist. Just ask ISIS if you can still find them. Fact, without non-pacifists, pacifists would be bones under a dictator's boot. Anyway, it's easy to be a holy man up on a mountain or up on Capitol Hill. But in the real world, things are more dangerous. A diplomat's nice, but a realist is better. We need Pompeo, not Deepak Chopra. So no more apology tours or fake resets. We need tough love from a grown-up. That's Pompeo. No wonder the left can't stand him. All right, let's just go around the table here and ask what caught your eye. We'll probably skip Kilmeade because he was sleeping all day.
Right.
Dana, what about he touched on the morale problem.
Yep. And actually, the 2 things. So he's not a diplomat. When he was first in the military, he talked about being at the Berlin Wall when it came down, and that his great respect was for the diplomats from the American State Department who were working with everyone to solve what was a very difficult political situation. And then he said that he recognizes and knows, because he spent some time at the State Department, that morale there is abysmal, and he said that would be his first priority to try to fix. And so if you cared about that, like that was one of the complaints that the left had about Rex Tillerson. The left is going to end up with a Secretary of State. It is going to be Secretary Pompeo when he gets confirmed. And if you want to hold him to something, make sure that that morale at the State Department is the thing that you keep knocking on his door about.
Geraldo, you're Republican, but you're kind of a hawk. I mean, you're very pro-military.
Yes, I am.
Do you get the sense that when you watch these committees that Democrats kind of live in a world where they only see our actions as bellicose, and they see the opposition as some kind of like amorphous, I don't know, thing out there that we're the meanies and they aren't?
Well, it's a highly philosophical question. I'd rather direct my attention to Mike Pompeo.
Oh,
Okay.
I reject your question. I have my own answer.
I'll get my team. You should have said I'll have my team get back to you.
I love the fact that the guy graduated first in his class at West Point. I love the Harvard Law School business. I think that in terms of personal style, charisma, he's much more natural natural fit with Donald Trump than Rex Tillerson was. I think that he'll be just fine. As hawkish as I may be, I think that Pompeo's to the right of me. I think he's more like John Bolton. I think you can consider he and Bolton together as a war cabinet. But I also think that warriors, and he is an Army vet, warriors are less likely to slip into war than pacifists are.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Kimberly, give me your thoughts and try to make it about 7 minutes long so we don't have to talk to Kilmeade.
I will do my very best to do so. Always a team player. Okay. So I think it's going to be very difficult for them to do anything against him because they've already put him through. If you can be the head of the CIA, how is it that you are deemed to be unfit to serve in this position? So he's got a great record. I agree with you, Geraldo. He's a very good personal fit with the president in terms of he trusts him, he likes him, they're able to work well together. I think he's somebody that's already has now the benefit of the experience of running the CIA. If you can be trusted with running, you know, a secret intelligence organization, and you've done very well there to the point where he trusts you for this next position that is also integral to the success of the administration, that says a lot. So on what grounds other than political and stalling or trying to be obstructionist are they going to say that he's unfit or unsuitable for this position? How many minutes left for Kilmeade's advice?
Well, we almost made it. Kilmeade, what are your thoughts, if you indeed have a thought?
Right, I do. I'm going to be thinking for at least another hour, and then it's party time. So here's what I think. I think the president's finally getting his band together. It's taken 14 months, but he's getting the guys together. Not that agree with him, but that respect him enough to disagree with him privately and not go call 1-800-Washington Post. So what Pompeo's already done is established with the president a rapport on the most important issues possible, and that's national security. You know those meetings that President Bush used to have that were so vital? The meetings he has now with Mike Pompeo, and when Pompeo's not there, he goes to Haspel, who's hopefully going to be heading up the CIA shortly. The other thing that comes to mind is Cory Booker wants to make sure that he's for same-sex marriage, which is a very interesting question to ask the Secretary of State. But if I just empty the arsenal.
I should have run against it when I had the chance.
I know. Cory Booker's running for president every minute of the day, even at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. So that, to me, is astounding. And my hope was that Rand Paul, who makes so much sense sometimes, would make a little bit more sense this time. Well, rather than come out and say, why haven't we left Afghanistan? Why did we have the war in Iraq? Well, he was an eye doctor, making sure that everyone's pupils were dilated. We were in the middle of dealing with Saddam Hussein's situation. To come back in 2018 and make him disavow his support of the Iraq war was farcical. And I just think that I hope that Democrats could understand how qualified he is and start to vote yes. We'll respect your nose more.
That was a cheap shot against eye doctors.
You're right, and that's true.
Yeah.
I'm against lens crafters. I had a bad experience.
In regard to what I said about hawks being less likely to declare war often, I think that it could be Ambassador Bolton and CIA Director Pompeo who are holding the president back for what would be a gratuitous strike at this point in cold blood against Syria. I think it's fraught with peril. The upside is so narrow. I don't know how you define what you hit. At 30 bombs enough, 60 bombs, 300 bombs.
So we're talking about that?
I think you're right, Kimberly. I think they're thinking about it more carefully.
I could not disagree with you anymore. I think that for Geraldo, we know where the military sites are. We know where they make the chemical weapons. We're getting our guys in place, getting our people in place to take out those sites. It's not kill everybody. It's wipe out their ability to make this
impossible by a cruise missile strike to wipe out the.
I think we're sending F-22s.
You need a bathtub and 3 jugs of various chemicals to make that.
I love Ari Fleischer's idea of taking out his palace, make him live in his summer home.
I think that the president's instinct to get out of Syria is the correct instinct. We backed the wrong side in that conflict. The danger to the United States and the free world is Sunni Muslim extremism. We are on the wrong side in Syria.
Iran.
The sooner we get out, the better.
What do you think? Who's be cheering the loudest? Russia and Iran.
I think Russia and Iran are an orbit. They are an axis of evil, but I don't care. I don't let them be as evil as they want to be. Let them share blintzes together and hummus. I don't care. What I care about is the American GIs. I'm not saying we pull out precipitously. I don't think Pompeo will do that, or Mattis will do that, or the president will recommend that.
Let's hear from Pompeo.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Who took away one and that tall guy with the funny hair? All right, this is Mike Pompeo talking about this very topic.
How about that?
We have the primary mission that we've been engaged in to defeat ISIS. We did so using a group of men who did great work, and we took the caliphate down, and we ought to be proud of it. There is still work to do. The other objective is to achieve a diplomatic outcome such that there's more stability, we can take down the violence, and so this is a diplomatic task, so that we get to a place where the Syrian people can ultimately govern themselves, and our goal is to make that a post-Assad Syria one day.
So, Dana, you heard crossfire right here.
Yes.
Where do you, after hearing that, where do you see this? Where do you fall between
those guys?
Yeah, Kilmeade and Geraldo.
I'd probably lean a little Kilmeade, gotta say. But I feel like that President Trump was right to criticize President Obama, and even Madeleine Albright criticized President Obama for not enforcing the red line that he put in place that then led to the situation that President Trump is trying to fix. Mm-hmm. But President Trump also drew a red line. Mm-hmm. And it was a year ago that he, threw a little missile Assad's way. It didn't do enough to decapitate. We don't have a political solution there. There's not a great strategy, but he's already now he's at risk of not enforcing his own new red line.
A lot of headlines.
How about a blockade? How about economic sanctions? How about seizing every dollar that Syria has deposited in every UK and USA bank?
Great.
I mean, when you take an action like this, a unilateral military action, you assume...
It's not unilateral.
You got France and England.
Oh, yeah.
And Saudi Arabia.
Have you seen France step up to the plate? Okay, we're going to offer 12 jet fighters.
No, but nevertheless, it might not be about, in terms of supplying the military might. The United States is capable and often carries the load with that. But if you have some kind of international, coalition or support where other countries are supporting you, then that actually matters and helps in terms of how it's going to be perceived globally.
If the president does not do something, he will never recover credibility. This makes the President Obama's move to not enforce his red line look trivial.
Last word, Geraldo.
Pompeo will not negate the Iran nuclear deal. He will make it tougher, perhaps. He will suggest that it be tougher, but he will not advocate abolishing that deal. And that is good news for all of us.
All right. Up next, President Trump addresses new reports that he planned to fire Robert Mueller. That's next.
This is a collaborative, improvisational conversation about politics and life.
Everybody at the Five comes with a background and an expertise.
No one says news has to be boring.
No scripts, nothing.
People love the show because we make them think.
And at 5 o'clock, you get the hard stuff and we dissect it up top. And then at the end of the show, we give you a little dessert.
We're telling you what we think. And we are speaking, it turns out, for a lot of people.
President Trump's declared the Russia investigation fake and corrupt and the single greatest witch hunt in American history. But would he ever fire the special counsel? Well, this morning he addressed the absolute frenzy over reports he's been wanting to. Quote, if I wanted to fire Robert Mueller in December, as reported by the failing New York Times, I would have fired him. Just more fake news from a biased newspaper. Some lawmakers are moving on legislation that would protect Mueller from losing his job. The bill could come up for a vote in the Senate Judiciary Committee as soon as next week. Okay, so Brian, what do you make of this since this morning till now?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. They keep on reporting that they have 6 unnamed sources, all verified, higher than President Trump, and more important, that all say that this took place, but it didn't happen. I just think I'm astounded by when I flip around channels that everybody is wanting him to fire Robert Mueller, thinking of all the different ways it could happen, and then how bad and cataclysmic it would be. And then when we get word today that Rod Rosenstein's been invited to the White House to have a meeting, I'm thinking to myself, no, he's going Rosenstein's way, but he went over there. There was no problem. They spent an hour and 15 minutes together. Then he left. I think it would be a huge mistake to do it, but I would love to see a different attorney in there that's going to be a little bit stronger, and I think the cooperation with this counsel has got to stop.
You mean defense attorney for the president?
Defense attorney for the president. What is going on here? Stop showing cooperation. Where has it gotten you?
Okay, so Dana, that's one approach. There's a couple schools of thought here. I mean, you were in the White House. with the president, advising on matters like this in the past.
Well,
where would you take it?
Well, I don't think there was ever a consideration of firing special counsel Patrick Fitzgerald. I mean, maybe some people thought maybe he should be, but I also don't think that. I think there's still a question of what the rules actually say, what the law actually says. Like, I don't know if the Congress actually needs to pass a law to protect Bob Mueller. I actually think that the president might not have the legal authority to do it. And here's the thing, it's moot anyway, because this investigation will continue, or it will get out somehow, and it will be over. It will be over at some point. It's just going to have to give itself some time. In the meantime, the president's got a really great economy. His event that he had today in the Rose Garden was basically what every American really wants to hear about. So if they can focus on that and not on this investigation, they'd probably do themselves some favors. The problem is they score so many of their own goals. It's not good.
Okay, Greg, if you were to advise, what would you say here?
Can I just correct one thing?
Yeah.
They score in their own goal.
Whatever.
Oh, because he's a soccer expert.
I'm just saying it happens.
This is why soccer is not America's sport, because of scoundrels like you. I think if I was Trump's advisor, I would tell him fire Mueller and replace him with his personal lawyer. Joe.
Michael Cohen?
No, Joe. Yeah, Joe Cohen. Michael Cohen? Is that his name?
It's Michael Cohen,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, Joe, Michael, same thing, really. Look, okay. There are some people that compete with you.
Joe's the doorman.
Yeah, Joe's the doorman. There's somebody that competes with you in the morning. I won't say the show.
Hoda?
Yeah. No, but they said that Trump is using foreign policy to distract from the Mueller investigation and all that stuff, which is, I believe, is incorrect. I don't notice that. But you could actually posit the opposite, that these witch hunts, to use his words, are designed to hobble a president from doing his job. And I think that if you pulled out of our corridor into the American vast world, that's how they see it. I think they see let the guy do his job. Like, the guy's doing his job. You got low unemployment. ISIS is gone. North Korea could be a major, phenomenal transformation. NAFTA. You got all this stuff happening. And it's like, let him do his job. I think that's how people look at it. I don't think they look at it the way they see, where like Trump is going to bomb something, to get it.
Like, Trump didn't use chemical weapons against the Syrian people. The Syrians did that with help of the, the Russians.
That's a very diplomatic way of saying it. Exactly. Okay, so Geraldo, obviously there's multiple schools of thought here, and the president has to weigh his choices very carefully and not act impetuously and impulsively, because of, genuine concern here as to whether or not this thing is, gotten away from him, right? There are political ramifications. There's ramifications for the country, the perception of what's going on in the White House, et cetera.
First of all, I think that firing Mueller would be like scratching a rash. It wouldn't make anything, underlying disease, go away.
Much worse.
Sometimes.
People describe the president as being extraordinarily angry. I mean, the dude's got it right. I mean, you cannot understate how absolutely beyond the pale this raid on Michael Cohen's office was by the Southern District of New York. When they absolutely flagrantly trampled on the lawyer-client privilege to bust into that office and take everything, savage everything,
thrown out of his hand.
I mean, it was something that it was so unprecedented. Did they try, for example, what 99% of prosecutors do in this circumstance, a subpoena? Or was that considered too benign, not punitive enough? Because you cannot say that the seizure of all of this evidence from the president's personal lawyer was not punitive. This was designed to create, whether it was designed or not, the perhaps unintended consequence of what they did at Michael Cohen's office was that the whole nation now is looking at this as a declaration that the feds all believe crimes were committed. They believe the president is implicated in those crimes, and that the inevitable destination here is impeachment of this president. I think that it was absolutely unjustified and so unprofessional. The president has a right to be steamed.
But Dana, what about the fact that look what happened, the fallout when Comey, and perhaps, I don't know, obviously people are upset about it, and we have a special on that on Fox at 9 p.m. on Sunday about James Comey with his book coming out and whatnot. But the thing is, I think that they have to think about the ramifications of it.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, none of us actually know what the evidence they were looking for, or the reasons they have, or the judge that approved it. We don't know any of this information, so maybe it was a total overreach and absolutely inappropriate, but maybe it's just as possible that it wasn't. I don't know.
Well, give me one example in your mind that you think it would make it appropriate.
I'm not absolute. I would never speculate on something like that because I don't.
Michael Cohen
know.
with a Zippo lighter about to burn a tape.
idea.
I mean, that's what it would have to be.
That would be it. It would be a ticking time bomb. He's a member of ISIS. Michael Cohen's in ISIS. And we have to stop him now, or the Lincoln Tunnel goes up.
All right.
That would be it.
All right. That was somewhat entertaining. Another storm is coming soon that's sure to add fuel to this fire. Jim Comey's about to kick off his tell-all tour, and it sounds like he's not going to hold back. Next.
Break it down.
All right, T-minus 3 days until former FBI Director Jim Comey kicks off his book tour blitz, and he's already making headlines without even saying anything at all.
How strange is it for you to sit here and compare the president to a mob boss? Are there things that you know but haven't said that could damage President Trump? James Comey. And to those who say you should have brought Hillary Clinton before a grand jury, was President Trump obstructing justice? Should Donald Trump be impeached?
The question is, would you watch an hour of stonewalling? Comey's apparently going to compare President Trump to a mob boss from the soundbite and from leaks. The RNC is preparing a campaign to undercut his credibility, including a rapid response team to rebut his claims in real time, unlike the Michael Wolff book where the president was left all alone to rant, rave, and tweet. So this time, Comey's got to prove himself, Geraldo. And here's the thing. If you believe Comey, you have to disbelieve McCabe at certain points, Loretta Lynch at other points, Hillary Clinton's camp at other points. He has got people ready to challenge him on multiple areas, but the president's got the most to lose.
True, but I think that what people have to remember, particularly liberals and people on the left, is that James Comey is the reason Donald Trump is president.
Maybe.
I believe that he did more to destroy Hillary Clinton's candidacy than any other person on earth. And I also believe it is human nature, this is me speculating, that some of his later conduct was informed by his guilty conscience about destroying Hillary Clinton.
I'll give you an example of what we're going to be dealing with over the next couple of weeks. He says that right after he got fired, he got a call from John Kelly, who says, I intend to quit in protest of you being fired. Well, John Kelly's people have come back and says, I never said that. I just called up to say basically good luck. Sorry you were fired. So they have a totally different tone to it, Dana. I mean, this is going to be a problem because people on both sides are going to say, that's not how I remember it.
You think that's going to be a problem? That's how we live our lives during this entire last 3 years.
But if I want to be believed, it's a problem.
I don't think anybody who supports the president or doesn't support the president, mind will be changed on Sunday night after this book comes out.
But Michael Wolff did some damage to the president when he said it was chaotic.
The president's approval rating is actually up. I actually don't think the Michael Wolff book had any impact at all.
Do you believe that the fact that it was a best-selling book, the president tweeted about it, did damage in perception?
I
he was
think
tweeting
it sold
out that I am a
hell of
stable
a lot
genius.
more books for Michael Wolff.
Right.
That's what I think. That it absolutely helped Michael Wolff sell books, but it didn't help Michael Wolff's credibility long term.
Kimberly, let me begin with an apology.
Yeah.
You chose me to lead off a segment after Greg ignored me in the A block, and for me to pick you third is inexcusable. Please forgive me.
Oh, come on, I want you two to get along.
Listen, all right, so use your legal background. I mean, this guy's going to come out sanctimonious. Not an FBI agent, just a lawyer telling everyone how great he is and how bad Trump is. Will it be effective?
Look, I mean, obviously there may be some initial fallout and some spin about it, but I do recall a previous show that you were on here, Geraldo, where you talked about your opinion in terms of the president perhaps giving Michael Wolff a lot of, airtime or going after the book, which perhaps just escalated the number of sales and kind of interest and eyeballs on it. Some of that can kind of, backfire. So do you want to give this guy attention or not? I don't know that he's necessary. Maybe there'll be a tweet or two fired off about it.
Right.
But overall, Danny make a great point, is that the president's approval rating has gone up because he has been making accomplishments and actually getting things done that he promised. So I would not allow a sideshow sort of distraction to be kind of promulgated in the press, in the media, to take up time and attention away from what he is trying to accomplish. I think make it smaller, quiet, and not blow it up. I think that is the right approach, a more measured, thoughtful, deliberative approach that is really just more reasonable.
Give him the Eminem treatment. Remember, Eminem wrote the song, was hoping to get a rise from the president. The president ignored Eminem. Greg, we would have more time, but you had a very long monologue, so try to be brief as you go over your point to this. Paul Begala is on the record saying Mr. Comey needs to put his big pants on and admit big boy pants on and admit that his unethical actions swung the election to Trump and beg forgiveness. That's not a Democratic kiss-up.
No, it's not. But then again, Paul Begala is a human thumb, so I don't respond to him.
Good point.
I think Comey should be placed on trial, or at least there should be a special about Comey being on trial. I don't know, maybe Sunday night. Right. Who knows? Look, you know what? We have to make a deal that we do memoirs, that we have to, like, agree that we write fake stuff that's really bad about us, and we all agree to do the same thing so we don't contradict. You know what I mean? I will have an entire chapter on you.
Right.
Kill me.
But you'll tell me first.
Yes, you're the worst man in cable.
I have a chapter on him in my memoir.
But even though he is a horrible person, he is. You're terrible to children and the elderly.
Right.
And the things you do in the green room are
mention the
despicable.
sweater vest.
Oh, the sweater vest is terrible.
That's the old me. Did you make a point?
Can I make one
No, I honestly don't care. Here's what I don't like about Comey, okay? He's going to be sanctimonious. He's going to deliver kind of like a moral, highfalutin, manufactured idealism. And I was so naive. It's like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. It's going to be that kind of thing. I got no use for it.
I just think Loretta Lynch told us what it's going to be like. She had to get ahead of this book. That's why she insisted on doing that interview last week. She's already contradicted James Comey's comments.
Who fired James Comey?
President Trump.
Rod Rosenstein.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that. Rod Rosenstein fired James Comey before you want to get rid of Rod Rosenstein.
At whose direction?
Remember that.
Let the record show I was asked one question and I got it wrong. Okay? Let me tell you what's coming up next. The marijuana industry has an interesting new spokesperson. Former Speaker of the House, John Boehner. Why the Republican now has a warrior for weed. That story next.
He was a longtime opponent of legalizing marijuana, but former House Speaker John Boehner's position on weed has changed. In retirement, the Republican's now on the advisory board of a cannabis company. He says his thinking has evolved. Quote, I'm convinced descheduling the drug is needed so we can do research, help our veterans, and reverse the opioid epidemic ravaging our communities. Greg, I'm sort of coming around to the same feeling, even though I hate like the whole weed thing. I do. You know I do. You know how I feel about it. I feel strongly about the weed. Anyway, but I'm coming around to thinking, especially when it comes to helping veterans, that this is something that we should do. But nobody's paying me for that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he was against it when he was in power. Now he's on the right side. He's on the right side because he's getting paid. But as you know, I'm for everything. If everybody has a right to their own oblivion, whether it's a martini or marijuana. And that's my advice. If you're on a cannabis board, there are two key points you got to do. You got to normalize marijuana so that it's as boring and mundane as a martini. There's nothing more dull and establishment than a businessman drinking a martini. You got to make pot like that so it's not edgy or cool. It's just something bland. Number two, you got to treat it like a martini. It's after work, not before. The problem with pot is the wake and baking of young people. They get up in the morning, they smoke pot, and in 2 years they're losers. In 2 years.
Awful. You insulted them.
You've insulted the lawyers.
There's 4 lawyers. If you smoke pot after work and you treat it like a martini, it's a reward, and that's different than like you never put the reward before the work.
Well, I think you should go to Geraldo on this.
What do you think about big weed, though? Like the corporate aspect of it.
What is that?
No, I watched Laura Ingraham. She's concerned about big weed.
I welcome
what is big weed?
Congressman Boehner on board. I think that he's late to the party. I think that the party, the GOP, is late because Republicans and Democrats are in favor of legalizing weed almost by 7 out of 10. In full disclosure, I was on the original board of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. I welcome John Boehner. I think that it is inevitable, and I believe that to ruin someone's life, it's racist the way the law is
Does
imposed.
put a lot of people in jail.
A lot of people of color in jail because, white kids in college, they get a lawyer and they get a ticket. A black kid gets a weed bust, and the next thing you know, he's in jail.
Well,
What do you think, Brian?
A couple of
you
things.
usually wait to be called on.
I just
Not on Fox and Friends.
This is what I think. I think this is an unofficial study. Anybody I know that smokes pot regularly absolutely wipes out their ambition and it changes their personality. Obviously, if you're an
Are
alcoholic,
you talking about Ducey?
Yes, I am. We have a full screen. No, but I would say that. Number two is I want to study Colorado.
Yeah.
And now we have a test study. How is it working? Are they bringing in more revenue? Has it stopped the illegal
a lot more
sales?
revenue.
The
has
revenue
it
is
brought
not the
illegal sales?
problem.
What about the DUIs that go along with that? What about the dropout rate that's applied with that? I just think it's a phony thing to say I'm doing it for the VA, as if they're the only ones that need pain medication.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that need pain medication. That's the best use for it.
All right, my fellow traveler on this. What do you think?
I don't know. I didn't know. Now we parted company on
No,
it.
I said I'm getting there. I'm getting there, but I still hate it.
Why do you
I'm
hate
not
it?
gonna do it.
Why do you hate pot? If you like, if you can, if
She's
if
never
you're
done it. I've never done. We have no interest in it. But I don't.
But that's not the
Greg,
not
I
the
don't wanna
premise for not
deprive-
liking something.
Correct.
We don't want to deprive people.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
but so what I'm trying to say to you is honestly cannot speak from personal experience of having tried. Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm being honest to you.
Right.
However, I have people, my mother, my father both died of cancer. They wanted to give that to them. Okay, but my daddy was like too far gone. But I have seen people who have benefited from it. I would never deprive someone who is suffering if that would actually help. They even use it for animals. If they're suffering, they have certain things with cannabis that have medicinal qualities
know
to be
that.
able to
Yeah,
help
they have
them.
bongs for dogs.
There's certain vets that are doing that now. So I
Opioid
understand that.
addicts also.
Yeah, and opioid addicts as well. So now we're seeing a more multifaceted approach in terms of what they have uncovered with the research that it can help people. So why would you be against research and science and finding new ways to do things and be
But
compassionate?
medical is different than recreational, and we got to
I
see.
agree.
And you're going to be the judge on who can enjoy what substance, Brian. I don't want a Fox and Friends host telling me how to have fun.
Right? How dare you just look at me as a Fox and Friends host? I'm
You
so much
play
more.
soccer.
Right.
I like certain substances.
Right.
So be worried about children, people.
But my last word is this. This VA spokesperson had a great line. John Boehner, I wish you said this 10 years ago when you had some power. Where were you? Now it's all about money. Then it was when you had the power and no money.
I still welcome him aboard.
All right. Hey, Speaker Boehner, what's up?
Best acronym ever.
All right,
normal.
coming up, one school district getting a lot of attention for how it's arming teachers to fend off an active shooter. Details straight ahead.
Gene.
Welcome back to The Five. You know, there is an intense debate going on right now in the country about arming school teachers with guns to fight off would-be assailants. But one Pennsylvania district has chosen a different weapon to fend off any shooters, tiny souvenir-style baseball bats.
Exactly.
Here's the Mill Creek superintendent.
It's a last resort. It is the last resort, but it is an option. Unfortunately, we're in a day and age where we may need to use them to protect ourselves and our kids.
I should have thought ahead and brought one of the bats. I mean, little bats, you know, like the little ones you get at
18
Yankee
inches.
Stadium, 18-inch bat. Kimberly, it seems almost silly. I mean, there are people who advocate baskets of rocks, at least stones. You could throw them. What can you do with a little?
I don't know. I mean, listen, but miniature bats are not necessarily a good idea. I just want to say, like, having gone to a lot of baseball games with my dad when I was little, right? They would give out, they had bat day, but then some people could not control themselves, were having too many, whatever, and you would see people fighting, hitting with the bat. So if these bats get into the wrong hand, there's different, you know what I'm saying? Then there's going to be lawsuits about that. I just don't know how that's going to fend off somebody, a would-be attacker or somebody
How
with
measured
a
of
bomb.
you.
Or,
This is the stupidest idea ever. It doesn't.
How
it's not
measured?
even-
Yeah,
it's
18
not-
inches.
It's not even.
I don't want to
good.
get hit by the bat law.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying,
Unintended.
18 inches, $3 a bat, 470 bats. This is incredibly stupid.
somebody's obviously
Harry
lobbying for
Fleischer
this.
used to be a lobbyist for
See what I'm
baseball
saying?
bats. I mean,
This
it
is
was
what I'm
true.
trying to tell you.
To protect kids? Or to have kids remember a certain baseball game?
Dana, I believe there should be one good guy with a gun any place there's a number of students over a certain number. I don't advocate arming, Mrs. Foley in your English class.
A good guy with a gun or an okay guy with a bat? It's your choice.
I was thinking, though, if you are resistant to even having one good guy with a gun, how about a taser?
Well, did you hear what happened today, though, down in Parkland with the teacher that agreed to be one of the teachers that had a concealed weapon, and he left it in the boys' restroom today. So I could see why there are some parents and other teachers who think this might not be the best idea.
But what about that non-lethal
I'm not against a good guy with a gun, though. I mean, I'm good
me
with
either.
that.
What about that, a taser?
Arm kids with tasers?
No, not kids.
That's what I'm talking
the
about.
Football coach.
No. I put I'm for guns. I want teachers to have guns, and I want the football coach to be armed and still be alive today.
Well, okay. I'm actually fair. I'm taking this. I take this pretty seriously. Obviously, a bat can't stop a gun, but it speaks to the desperation of the schools for hardening measures. However, this is a positive direction in the mindset that commits to the idea of fighting back. You may laugh at the fact that they're holding bats to defend themselves, but it's the direction of the mindset. We talk about Flight 93. They were out, they knew they were going to die, but as a group, they rushed the hijackers and they saved the White House and they saved our country. So what I'm talking about is the psychological advocacy of self-defense, in which a group of people can actually mob a shooter knowing that there will be casualties, that maybe one of them will die, but when 8 people surround one person, they will win. It's about the mindset. And the fact is, we have to stop freezing like deer in the headlights when something happens. And that's why I was mocked for talking about advocating self-defense for kids. But the reason why you do that is you teach them not to freeze and you teach them to react.
Great idea.
Act under pressure.
Act under pressure.
So fantastic. And
fight back. If you cannot run,
you got to fight back.
You cannot hide, fight back.
Can't unlock the cabinet to pull out the bats.
One more thing is next.
True.
Someday